We will take it away. All right, I'm Melanie Crandall, Marketing VP at Camio. I'd like to welcome you all as we talk about how AI is transforming security. And it's becoming mainstream just in time. We're facing enormous increases in health and safety risks and steadily increasing budget pressures. When I was doing my due diligence before I joined Camio, I was struck by the comparison I heard. Why can you search the entire web in 50 milliseconds, but you can't find anything in video without tons of hunting and pecking? More often than not, it's hours spent just to find those few seconds that matter. Camio has addressed this fundamental issue by creating a real-time search engine for security video. Each year, a staggering $40 billion is spent protecting people and property. The inability of security cameras to differentiate between harmless motion and potential threats results in much of this investment wasted. Huge amounts of time and money spent on unimportant video footage. So to me, it's exciting. Camio real-time video search is an entirely new SaaS category that radically changes security's cost structure and effectiveness. In the next 30 minutes, we'll show you how AI has become a 50 times force multiplier for a wide range of security and compliance scenarios, how Camio eliminates the technical and business risks in exploiting the latest AI, and finally, how AI radically reduces costs while improving protection. We'll show more than we tell. By the end, we'll have clear insight into how real-time video search can help you protect people and property. So I'm handing this over to Camio CEO Carter Maslin and Sales VP Larissa Djansky to bring it all to life. After they've presented, we hope you'll share your thoughts. Remember to click your Q&A button and we'll address your questions. Thank you so much for joining today.
Excellent. Thanks, Melanie. Hi, everybody. I'm Carter. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Camio, and we're going to just dive straight into demos. But I am going to just start before the demos because it's all a visual product anyway, just with a quick question about the kind of title of this session. We had said from Nashville bombing to Chilean mines. And the reason we picked those two examples, like what would those two things have in common other than the fact that they are both in need of a 50x, if not more, force multiplier to either address urgent public safety issue or critical health and safety issues. And so just to tell the story between these two things before we dive into illustrating it, on the Nashville bombing, I got a call from Pivot SaaS, who is one of our partners, and he said, he woke us up on Christmas morning saying there's just a bombing. They don't know whether this is the first in a series. This was before it was known that it was a suicide bomber. And the concern was like, how quickly could we know where that RV came from? Was it followed by people that may have been collaborators that drove the person away? Or were there other kind of follow-on events that could happen that we could identify from people leaving the scene prior to the explosion? So the challenge was, you know, you've got a whole 24 hours that you want to comb instantly to be able to get any kind of clues on that. And that's what Camio enabled within 2 minutes to find the RV from two different views on the very periphery of a spherical fisheye camera, and then able to we'll send that to links to both police and FBI. So that's on the kind of emergency public safety response. On the health and safety side, we were going to go over some examples that are in remote Chilean mines, where you have people living and working together in close quarters, where an infection can really have a horrible effect because you're in such tight proximity to each other, and the risk of infection could shut down the operations. And we're going to go over some examples of how the same real-time search engine works for all kinds of scenarios. And the basic commonality between the two scenarios is that the effort is to put cameras to work on behalf of people. So let the cameras do the work. Let AI understand what's happening in the video and act on it. And the general backdrop is that this is what is plaguing us in the security industry from a macro perspective. The budgets don't change much, but the demands are exponential. We've got a whole host of new threats that are related to the pandemic, but also just a lot of other issues that require a coordinated response that's protective security, not just producing evidence after the fact. And so let's just dive into demos just so that we get some context on Camio and how real-time video search puts cameras to work. So the first part of the AI, because we were talking about how AI is the force multiplier, is that AI comes in different forms. The first form is event summarization. So much like when you do a Google search, the first page of results has little snippets of each of the results. And that is called summarization, where you're basically giving an idea of, is this worthy of your clicking? And this is the same thing in video. Is this worthy of your clicking? So even without doing any searches, the first step is that you have this browsable summary that only shows you events that you can just quickly preview by passing your mouse over. So every time that I pass a mouse over an event, I'm not having to play the video to know that a car passed here. I can still click to play the video, and that minority report preview will show you the trajectory of the vehicle before watching the video. But instead of watching things in linear playback time, you've got this AI-produced summary that gives you a really fast response. Events can just stream in as they happen, filtered for things that are spurious, like you're not seeing rippling leaves in the wind, or you're not seeing spiders and shadows and things like that. And so the first level of AI is just that basics. But what Camio is known for is the real-time video search. And so you can say things like, you know, I just want to see whenever our entry was ajar in the office. And instantly you've got a summary of every time the door was ajar. And similarly, you've got summaries that you can just preview by passing your mouse over them. You can ask any kind of question. Like you could say, I'm just looking for cases of tailgating where there's an unauthorized entry into the building. And that's where there's a mismatch between the number of people that badged in and the number of people that came in. And so all of you running a SOC 2 certified facility, you need to know how many authorized or unauthorized entries have you had. This summarizes it in less than a second. And if I play one of those examples, I'll just skip ahead a bit where you can see Rakshit is the one that's badging in, and then there's a person following him. Even though he occludes her body at the entrance, we still know that there's two people that passed through the door, even though there was only one badge in. And so just to back up on how AI is solving that problem, because a lot of times artificial intelligence is an umbrella term when there's really a lot of different areas of artificial intelligence at play in delivering a real-time video search. So I'll just give a quick explanation of that one tailgating scenario, and then we'll back into other scenarios. So if I just play this illustration, this is the person that is legitimately badging into the office. And I'm going to pause right when she steps into the office, just to show that at this point, everything's okay, because there's one entry unlocked and one person that passed through the door. But if I continue this, and then I'll just pause it when he comes in, it turns red as soon as he comes in the door. And the reason is that now there are two people that have passed through the door, but there's still only one entry unlocked. And what Camio does uniquely is that it takes your existing standard 2D conventional IP cameras and turns them into a 3D sensor, much like augmented reality and Pokemon Go, where it knows where the characters are in 3D space. That's what we're doing for security video in knowing where she's standing. So if you can notice the fact that Camio knows that she's in front of this glass conference room and not inside the glass conference room. And most security video systems today will just have a vague notion of zone intersection, that there's some motion in some region of the scene, and it's very hard to differentiate between foreground objects, background objects, reflection through glass and things. But what Camio does is there's a floor plane on the floor that is in 3D, and it looks to see where people are standing in that 3D space so that it's not confused when somebody just is walking by to the lunchroom versus going into the conference room versus passing through the door. So that technology is a subsystem of Cameo that is internally codenamed Einstein. And the reason for that was just a play on the fact that it's trying to understand 3D space and time, where people are, even though you're just working from a 2D image. And that same technology is used with queries like this. If I were to say, I'm just looking for people that are too close without a mask. In this case, within seconds, you're going to see every time there were people less than the 6 feet recommended CDC distance between people for COVID-19, and the times when they were too close without a mask. So if I play this one, for example, from inside our office, I'm just going to leave up the overlay that shows when the detection was. So this is an example of my having no mask. This was the point at which Rakshit and I were too close together. And this is the blue rectangle connoting that Cameo was certain that there was a mask. And the really interesting thing about this particular example is that you can't see Rakshit's mask. And that's because the AI is not just classifying masks. Everybody can, on a photo album, look at a face and see, is there a mask or not a mask? The problem is security video is never as good as your home photos with you, or a kiosk presentation of your face where you go up to the kiosk and say, do I have a mask? It's always in these really hard angles. People are looking down, whether they do a pirouette or not. Cameo is doing the combination of identifying and tracking each individual anonymously and keeping track of whether they had a mask. So at some point, we could see that he had a mask. And so it's not confused. And this is the same technology. If I look at the illustration behind this example, it's using the same Einstein technology to know where people are standing in 3D space. So if I pause here, you can see that there's no mask, there's a mask. We know where they're standing in 3D space, even though this is just a regular 2D camera. I think this is one that we were using that was either from Panasonic. I don't remember the manufacturer, but it's a regular 2D camera. And it keeps track of where people are as they're moving through space. So that's the quick overview of behind the scenes, this Einstein technology. So we started with the two examples of the Nashville bombing and the social distancing and contact tracing. So I'm just going to go into a few more examples of how you instantly marshal a coordinated response to an emergency like the Nashville bombing. So I'm going to share links with you guys that you can open in your own browser. If you're at your computer on a browser, then I'll just paste some links as we do a pretend investigation. So all of this is live, so I don't know this is a drum roll because I don't know what is in our video feed, so I'm just gonna pretend like we're doing an investigation. So I'm hypothetically gonna say, there was a hit and run. All that we know is that it was a delivery truck, and somebody wants to know, we want to track down who was driving when. And so you can, with Cameo, just say something. I'll just start with I'm just looking for a FedEx or a UPS truck, and this is across our camera. So we'll see when there were some FedEx or UPSs. And so now instantly I've had the machines do the work. I am spanning from December 10th through January 23rd on one screen with sub-second response time. And so now let's say that's already weeding it down to a set of things that we want to investigate. But let's say that it's a much broader time. So let's say that I want to do this 60 days ago to now. And I think I only store a 30-day plan on this account, but I'm just going to use this as an example. So if I want to share this with you guys, and you're going to help me do this investigation, I can just take that query and I can share it via link. And if I were to give you this link, you would have to be a signed in, authenticated guest. I would have had to explicitly add you to the account because all of the video is encrypted for each individual's own account. But what I'm going to do is use the emergency response scenario where I'm going to grab a link that anybody can use. And if I paste this, I'll go ahead and paste this in this chat so that you guys can open this same link. And if you click on that link, the interesting thing is that you'll see exactly what I see in terms of search results instantly. And that is the link sharing capability that is optional but useful in cases of like a public safety emergency. We were working on this with police forces where the scenario that everybody had in mind was after the Boston Marathon bombing. They spent 3 days, and I think 1,000 people helped to comb through to try to find who had the backpack when, and the whole series of deaths in Watertown that followed that. You know, we look back saying, you know, if Camio had been there, we wouldn't have had the elapsed 3 days. We could have done that in less than an hour by having many eyes on the same video instantly sourced from the private sector on an opt-in basis. And this is the exciting thing, is that you've got the instant ability to react with both that scenario and emergency response. So some of our integrations with partners that have access control systems can trigger a lockdown response if there were an active shooter or another disaster where public safety officials have to go into the building. They want to see what's happening before they go into the building. And you can automate the production of a link like this that is restricted just to the things that you're sharing. If you guys are using that link in your browser, you'll notice that you can't deviate from the 60-day period of FedEx or UPS. Everything in that is only restricted to that particular query. And that's a super powerful way to be able to share a suspect with an on-premise security guard, or notify police that this is the person you're looking for, or just simply share with a colleague to open the door for a UPS package. It makes it very easy to securely share without thumb drives, no downloads, things like that. So one thing that I think is not clear about real-time video search is that it's not just about forensic investigations. This is the real-time part. It's actually sending you information on an opt-in basis. So if I look in my search box, I'm just going to clear my search box. I just want to show the pinned queries that I have. These are just my personal account. So I want to know when FedEx is delivered. I want to know if people are come inside the main entry of Camio. I want to know if people are too close without a mask. All of these searches are exactly the same as an alert, because a pinned search or persistent search is just continually looking at events in the real world and notifying you when those new events happen. So just to take like a personal example, I often want to know just when the dog's in the backyard. So I can do a search like backyard dog, and I'll just do it on my personal account. And this is equivalent to my getting an alert every time the dog is out back. And I had it even set to certain times a day. So I only want to know when the dog is out back when I'm at work. And these are just pinned queries that if I look at main entry people inside as an example, this will show every time that there were people inside the main entry of this office area. And so those alerts are not only the flip side of a search, but they're also data points. So if you want to have charts of things that are happening in the real world, like the one that we were doing for the Chilean mining company, is just what is my rate of masks versus no mask by hour. And I'm just going to expand this to 7 days to see if we can find people in our own account that didn't have a mask, because we basically can go as far back as we want, but the dashboard, I just wanted to have a little more history so we could see if we find an example that we can drill down into. And all of this data is accessible via Google BigQuery. And so I'm just going to zoom in to a week-long period to look for cases where there might not have been masks. So we were at 100% mask compliance for all the times except for this time and this time here. And so you can just click to open that specific instance, and just going from that click to this event is all interactive. And the main point behind the illustration in the dashboard is that your searches are alerts and data. And that can all be used to answer questions around, where are my hotspots as people are returning to work? Do I need to put out additional signage outside the lunchroom, or is it more in the entrances? Where can I put up plexiglass barriers? Where do I need to have additional hallway proctors or change shift rotations? All of these kinds of insights come from being able to just see your data. And one last point on how Camio works. I just wanted to answer preemptively one question about how the deployment is underway here. On our homepage, we have a diagram that shows the deployment model, but the preferred one is to have some kind of on-premise gateway. That can be a virtual machine that is running a whole host of workloads, including Camio. So you can just purely download software, or you can put an appliance on your LAN, and that continuously analyzes the video streams on your local network. And those streams can come from the camera, the NVR, VMS, it doesn't matter. It's just using industry standard RTSP streams. And then the local on-premise box is continuously analyzing that video and selectively uploading to the cloud. And that's what gives you these fast thumbnails that we shared in that link just now, that gives you searchability from any browser, any phone. So that's what enables things like, if I just say, you know, I'm looking for bikes on the sidewalk at Liverpool Public Library. When you do a query like that, you don't necessarily have to fetch all the video. So this is just finding the times when there were bikes on the sidewalk just by looking at the thumbnails of the images, so that the video can potentially even stay on premise. And we'll come back to that in one sec. And so this diagram, the key takeaway from this is that the use of real-time video search is an overlay onto your existing systems that IT people sometimes drive the purchase of Camio for no other reason than cybersecurity. And that's because most existing systems require that you either enable P2P protocols, open network ports, establish VPNs, all of which have vulnerabilities in opening inbound ports into your local area network. And what Camio does instead is by putting this Camio box on your LAN is that it is only going outbound encrypted port 443, TLS encrypted traffic. So from a cybersecurity benefit, you still have remote access that's fast and efficient to look at any location, but you're not opening your local area network to external attackers. So there's a whole bunch more that we could show in Camio, but I'm just gonna, this is meant to be like a limited kind of walkthrough. So I just wanna wrap up by just describing what Camio is focused on in this 50x force multiplier, because the category that Camio is in is often confusing. If you were to go to ISC West and look for Camio on the floor, where would you go to look? This is one of the questions that we talked about with Melanie on marketing. And the existing categories like analytics, VSAS, AI, NVRs, VMS, all of these things are a result of looking at security as a problem. Like, my job is to record and manage video. And the thing that we came at this problem space with from a different perspective was like, really, what is the fastest time to result where machines are doing the work for you, telling you what warrants your attention? And that different question about what the goal was created a different category. And that's what Camio is squarely focused on, being the best real-time video search engine that works with all of your existing infrastructure and interoperates with all other systems. So if I show a quick example of what that new world looks like, let me skip ahead to that. Things that we initially thought of as just kind of sexy demos that are just showing quick answers to questions like, show me any vehicle that's in a restricted area, or people in the garage from 11 to 6. I've got thefts happening at night. I want to know anytime because nobody should be there at that hour. Or just the one that I did before where you just want to know about a FedEx delivery. All those are not just kind of the frosting, which I call like the analytic frosting. it's actually stuff that changes the cost dynamics of the whole video processing pipeline. And the reason is that the query can govern what decisions you make throughout processing a video, from everything from the bandwidth used, the storage, the encoding of the video, what other classifications you make of the video. So the key point here is that AI has a lot of different flavors, and the end result is that you get a 50 times force multiplier, which is actually a very conservative estimate. We tried to do our best not to overstate anything and look at it from just a pure engineering discipline on what the productivity and cost savings were. And because of the fact that the AI eliminates 90% of the false positive motion by adapting to the scene automatically, and because it's at least 5 times faster to review search results like we were showing when we did entry ajar or door forced open or tailgating, that combination is a 10x less to review and 5x faster. It means that now the same person can cover 50 times more locations. And that the cost reductions that drives enables, for the first time, I think, the security industry to have a posture that's like proactively protecting people and places, not serving as a repository of evidence. And that's the big payoff. If you look at half of the budgets being spent on video where it just never is examined, nobody ever looks at it. So then you have to ask yourself, like, why is the budget allocated to something not viewed and not actively monitored? And so we're very focused in the category of real-time video search, of making it very responsive to tell you what you need to know, even regardless of the video source and regardless of the scenario, with a query language that is in natural language and can accommodate a whole host of other classifications on an ongoing basis. So this is our basic pitch on why Camio is not only the safest choice, but the optimal choice in the current AI landscape. The rate of innovation in chipsets, algorithms, and tools, if you multiply all the factors that are converging over the next 2 years, the performance is going to have literally a 26,000 times better performance if you take every one of those innovation layers slated to be coming in the next 2 years. So the take in enabling your cameras to do the work is just connect the industry's best cameras. So all of the brands listed at the bottom of this slide with the best world-class cloud infrastructure that's got all the best in key rotation management, shredded and encrypted files, multi-replicated storage across geo-redundant data centers, all of that stuff. Camio is just connecting those two industry standard layers, best in cams, best in cloud, with edge middleware that is also best in class. It can run on a virtual machine on anything. So you're not buying proprietary hardware that is only a snapshot in time with a particular chipset. You're actually just getting on an escalator where today's capabilities just continue to advance after your cameras are connected, because all the infrastructure is best of breed and incorporating new advances as they become available. And that's the exciting thing for us to see in the security industry, is that we look at the web, like from the year 1996 to now, and the explosive innovation in the web, and said, you know, why isn't that level of innovation in the security industry? And I think the fundamental reason was that if you go on the showroom floor of ISC West, you see a whole bunch of vendor-specific silos where, you know, they're putting together a stack that is, by just inherent constraint, mediocre at some aspects of the stack. And your choices are like, go with these siloed stacks, snapshot in time with the capabilities that you buy that day. And that's not how the web worked. That's what we didn't end up with a future that was AOL. We ended up with a web of interoperable components with best of breed databases, best of breed network CDN edge caches, best of breed memcache and mapper reduce pipelines, and all these components that are now available to the security industry, where You could take all the industry standard streams, process it with best of breed platform as a service compute tools, dev tools, AI models. All of this is enabling the security industry to behave with the kind of interop that the web had. In fact, that's one of the things that we do, just as an illustration, where we had customers, including the Camio team itself likes to have notifications in Slack. Just as an example, this is a pin query where I want to know whenever there's a person inside the main entry, and these come in as Slack notifications, including the ones from my backyard dog from 9 to 8. It's basically streaming those events into any system, not just a browser. So the kind of key thing for establishing this new category of real-time video search is aligning with smart customers that push you in the right direction. And this is some of the observations of 2 of those customers, where one head of security said, Camio enables our GSOC to do more with less, where you basically have way more events in the real world than any human can review, but you really want to react if there's a problem in the evening hours, for example. And Camio gives you the 50x multiplier to be able to cover all those properties with much fewer staff. Another head of security for a leading university said, we chose Camio because we didn't want to do this again in 4 years. And that's the point around this escalator of technology advances once you're on industry standard platforms. So where Camio is the connective tissue between world-class cameras and world-class cloud. And because we want everybody that we're talking to be among happy customers, I wanted to transition to Larissa just to describe how we typically engage and then leave enough time for some questions if people have any. We'll go into more deep dive demos, and Larissa and team can also obviously schedule follow-up, but I just want to hand it over to you, Larissa, just to describe, if people want to put their cameras to work, what's the next step and what do you usually do?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. So we have devised basically a 4-week pilot where when we think about security, I think about it as, how can we help you solve a problem that exists for you today? And how do we diagnose that problem? And how do we make that problem work with your budget? So usually what I do is we'll pick a place that you want to pilot Camio on. And that's sort of a place that's representative of your setup and representative of your problem. And we'll set up a small set of cameras there, maybe 20, 30, 40, 50. And we'll get things going. We'll, at the kickoff, we'll do a little bit of training. We'll set some alerts for you just to make sure. We'll walk you through the dashboards. And then once the pilot is going, I start kind of looking at what's going on in the pilot and analyzing it. We have a 2-week check-in and a 4-week check-in. And at those points, we really start talking about, what are you noticing? So what are some problems that Camio is uncovering that you maybe didn't even know existed? Or maybe you thought you had a problem in one place, but it turns out that you have a problem in a completely different place. So we start really pointing your attention to where the issues are, and you start thinking about mitigation, not just searching through random video clips. And then as we kind of reach the end of the pilot at week 4, I give you an understanding of your usage of Camio. And what does it mean for you to have like a busy time? What does it mean for you specifically to have a not busy time? And you get, a price from me based on, here's what it costs to solve this problem that you have, not, I'm not going to charge you per camera per month or something like that. Right away. And so that really kind of speaks to the value of Camio, what Camio brings to the table, which is we're really trying to solve security problems. We're really trying to point your attention to the problems that are important. And with this pilot, we hope that we create a solution that works for you, where we can tweak some things that make it something that you can include in your budget, and you can really start seeing the benefits of Camio within 4 weeks. So thanks for for listening. And we do have one question that came in, Carter, as you were
Okay.
speaking, so I could read that out loud.
Yes, that's great. Actually, I can see this one here. So it says, privacy by design, how far can be used Cameo in Europe GDPR? So basically, all of the, Cameo stores no biometrics, no PII. When you saw the examples of social distancing and mass detection, one of the things that we're proud of is that we do that without storing biometrics. And that's because we're segmenting people, tracking them through space, knowing whether there's a mask, but none of that is stored. So we're GDPR compliant on no biometrics. In fact, one of the things that I didn't show is that for GDPR, Ireland was the first to have a 30-day turnaround on SARS requests, subject access requests, where somebody can say, I demand that you give me the video that you have of me. And part of fulfilling that demand is redacting and blurring all the other faces. And I didn't show it, but I could follow up if you send email showing a tool that will blur everybody but the person in the SARS request. And that was explicitly part of the SARS of GDPR. Cameo itself is on Google Cloud Platform, which has regional controls. We are by default hosted in the US region, but if your deployment requires that it be hosted in the EU or a particular country, we can work with you on that. But it's by default, all the video is shredded and encrypted only for your access. No problems on being used in Europe and around the world. The only country that we have a problem in is mainland China with their firewall issues. So we serve 35 time zones. I didn't even know there were 35 time zones, but we have customers in 35 time zones around the world, and no problem on the privacy side. Everything we've done has been with privacy in mind.
So that was the one question that came in through the Q&A. If anybody else has a question, they can raise their hand and I can unmute them.
Oh, how does the AI know it's a dog? So basically, this is like a interesting thing where if I just do a few more demos, if you could ask the same question, like how does it know if we have a Buy Right Creamery, which is a great ice cream and dairy products thing. When I do Buy Right, I instantly see the times when the truck went by. And if I do the same thing with my backyard dog example, these are cases of AI that is a special class of AI called convolutional neural nets, where they're basically classifying images based on pattern matching. And that is, that's what the same technique is used to know whether somebody has a mask or doesn't have a mask. If I show an example of this, this is a case of classifying it even at very low resolution. These are old school D1 480p cameras. And just the knowing whether something is a mask or not a mask is, believe it or not, the same as knowing whether it's a dog or not a dog. It's basically based on training neural nets to say the right guess. And one of the things we didn't cover is that you can train your own models with Cameo. So for example, the mining company that we referenced early in this discussion, they want to recognize headlamps for people that are going into mines. And we can do that in less than an hour of work if you have examples of people with headlamps and without headlamps. And so it takes about an hour to collect in the range of 500 to 1,000 examples, because each frame of video can have multiple examples in that frame. And then we can publish new models on demand. So I'll just give an example from our Intel partnership. We're part of Intel's partnership program for the way that we distribute and build models, as an example, along with NVIDIA. But we basically will have, let's say that you wanted to recognize headlamps for a mine. You submit 500 to 1,000 examples. We create a model, it gets optimized and deployed to this box on the edge automatically. So this was the point about the escalator of innovation. You're not buying something that's a snapshot in time. You can deploy a new model, whether it's recognizing a mask or a dog. In fact, when COVID hit and the pandemic started, we were the first in the world to launch automated mask and social distancing detection 3 weeks after people had stay-at-home orders. And that speed is because of this internal project that's called codename Praxis. It's basically a way to publish new AI models on demand and get them distributed and running on your cameras without touching anything. And that's a longer answer than how does it know it's a dog, but the short answer is convolutional neural nets on artificial intelligence.
See, I don't have any more questions coming in through the Q&A.
So if everybody knows there is that question and answer button, I know we only have a couple minutes left in the scheduled time, but if you have, we'll make one last call for questions if you click on that Q&A button and submit them. Going once, going twice. Okay, well, just to wrap up, the main thing we're excited about is enabling people to provide protective security, not just evidence collection. And Camio is a real-time video search engine that works with all existing cameras, where the two main driving benefits are the 50x force multiplier and just rock solid regulatory compliance, whether that's unauthorized entries or tailgating detection or social distancing and mask compliance, making the cameras do the work for you. So we'd love to follow up with you. I had the contacts here. If let me just see where that was.
Oh, we have one question that came in.
Okay.
Oh,
Can
we
you
have two questions that came in.
Okay.
The going once, going twice worked.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So is your facial rec in-house? So we don't tout facial recognition. We do face detection, but not recognition. And the reason is that in real life surveillance scenarios, it's very rare that you have images like this that we're presenting that you could definitely do well on. And one of the problems that Camio has had to combat from a marketing perspective is that we're entering the security industry that we call it like a scorched earth marketing landscape, where for 10 years people have overpromised stuff and people get jaded because they're like, this doesn't really work the way they said it was going to work. And facial recognition is one of those categories where the claims about its accuracy, yes, you can do it in like a kiosk setting, but in most of the real life video surveillance, there's no way you're going to do a good job on facial recognition. Detection, which is just knowing that there's a face in the scene, which is what we use for mask stuff, that we do particularly well. That is in-house, and any recognition we call third-party providers. So as an example, these cloud hooks here allow you to extend Camio's functionality so that if you yourself wanted to add facial recognition, not just the built-in detection that Camio has, you can do that easily. You can say, whenever there's a person in the scene, call this facial recognition on the bounding boxes of these faces. And that extensibility lets you incorporate it even though we don't deliver the recognition in-house. The other question?
One more question, which is, can you sell it to law enforcement and authorities? I know the answer is yes, but I'll let you.
Yes, basically we power police departments and things on their own cameras, but the vision, so there's no problem in servicing law enforcement. That is different though than the private sector cameras. Those are only encrypted for the owner. It's not ever shared with law enforcement. So it's not like we sell something that's recorded on a privately owned camera that we would sell to law enforcement as the end customer. And one of the visions that we have on the real-time video search, because of the fact that it works with all existing cameras, is that you can form like a collective distributed defense. So picture an Amber Alert where somebody says, in the police force, somebody says to the whole city of Nashville, urgent, white RV anytime from midnight to 6:30 in the morning on Christmas Day. And they put out like an Amber Alert like that. The police department has no access to people's video. We think that's what is the dystopia that people fear about video surveillance. They don't want a big brother surveillance state that has the public sector and private sector commingled in a privacy invasion. What we think is a really nice model is a request response like Amber Alert, where the police simply say, I'm looking for a white RV on Christmas Day between midnight and 6:30. And then the private sector gets an automated alert saying, hey, you have 3 candidate matches for a recent alert from the local police. Would you be willing to collaborate? And then each individual makes their own decision on their opt-in to the collaboration, and then can donate the way that we did via links. And we think this is like a great model that navigates the whole false choice between safety and privacy. We think there's a right, like you could debate all these things, but there's a good balance where we could provide a really good collective defense against the minority of bad actors that view the majority as a soft target. And if that majority is now armed with like instantly marshaled responses, it's exciting because I think that kind of collaboration without big brother state surveillance is really exciting. So anyway, is there anything else?
I think those are all the questions.
Okay, excellent.
Yep. Just to chime in, we do have case studies written up if any of you are interested, which kind of drills down into some of these specific examples. So just get in touch. We can share those.
Yes, if you go to camio.com, there's a section on solutions. So like if you want to look at the social distancing and mass detection, you can just say download the case study here. It'll have examples, but you can just take a look at the example from the minds that we just published recently and we're talking about earlier in this session.
Alrighty.
So great. Thanks everybody for making the time, and we look forward to following up with you in one-on-one discussions. Contact any of the people that were on this slide, or you can just go to the contact page or send sales. No matter what, we'll respond, no matter how you get to us, and we look forward to meeting and working with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.